Hi, Theory of Personality learners. I hope you guys are having a good week so far. We're on Module 7, so I always recommend going to Course Menu and Learning Modules and just clicking right on the module that we're in. For Module 7, first, let me just point out that in this discussion, it's asking you to use this article to support what you're saying. And if you click on that, you can click on the PDF full text. And remember that when the way that you show that you are supporting what you're saying using information from this article is to cite the article. So let me just show you over here. If you just click on this and scroll down to APA, you would copy this for your reference. Note that, and then let me just finish saying that you would include the author's last name followed by the phrase et al. And then 2019 at the ends of the sentences that contain the information from this article. That's how you show that you have supported what you're saying with this article. I want to show you the APA website. apastyle.apa.org is where you begin. And if you're at apastyle.apa.org, let me go to home. You scroll down to reference examples, apastyle.apa.org. And then to cite this journal article references. And I just want to show you a couple of things. One is that notice that these are not capitalized here. And just notice that even in our even in the Shapiro library, see how it got that wrong? APA style recently switched and not all of these are updated, I've noticed. Like even our book is like that. So just make sure that you're lowercasing these right here when you do copy this. And then just note that because there's more than two authors, and it says this over here, you would include the first author's last name if there's more than two, followed by the phrase et al. With a period, comma, and then the year of publication. And this year of publication is 2019. So, for the discussion this week, you're including information from that article. And I think it's always helpful to be looking at the rubric because we haven't had discussions frequently in here. So just note that you have to support what you're saying with credible resources. It's asking you to use that article. I would also say that our book is a credible resource because it's also required reading for this week. So if you just wanted to use the book, I think that that would make sense too. And just make sure that you're showing that you used information by using that author's last name, followed by et al. And then 2019 at the ends of the sentences that contain that information. Or for our book, it would be SHIRAEV, comma, 2016. And just notice that that's needed even if you need, like, just want to get it proficient. Like if you want to get exemplary as well. But I'm just saying that if you don't include that information, it drops down. And then relevance to the programmatic themes. And then just note here that it's saying one programmatic theme that's proficient. More than one is how you get to exemplary. I like to point out that for advancement of discussion, it's also saying that you have to integrate views from other learners or sources. This doesn't say that it has to be credible like it does up here. So technically for this, it could be anything. But both posts add information from other learners and sources, even if it's just from the internet. I personally find that since you already read the book, it's easiest just to include information from the book. Just make sure that you show that you're including it by including that in-text citation, you know, SHIRAEV, comma, 2016. And then otherwise it's going to drop down. Like, notice that it drops down to needs improvement if you don't include that information. And then just make sure you're using proper APA citation. I love apastyle.apa.org. I mean, they're the experts, you know, and they are really helpful. And then for timeliness, you're submitting that initial post by Thursday. All right. And then for project 2, you can click here or to the guidelines and rubric. I'll just click here just to show us where it goes. And then here's the template that you could download, and you're just filling in that information. I already downloaded it. You're like deleting this part and filling in your own information. And then just make sure that you're looking at the guidelines and rubric. I think that these can be complicated, but just try to take it, like look at all of those. That's a lot. I mean, we could say articulation is just make sure that you do a spelling and grammar check and that you cite properly. But then we got to take it step by step. And I would say that for me, this is what I'm looking at when I'm grading. And what is most crucial is, when does it say justifies your answer? That means that you include information that's credible. Like, note that in our class, it's always like you have required reading. I don't know if you've been noticing that, but it says what's required. And in the past modules, you've had required reading from the book. Like if you go into the other modules, you can see that you've been required to read the information, like chapters 12 and 13 there. So just note that when it says justifies your answer, justifies response. See how it's saying that? Justifies response. That always means justifies response, that you include information from one of those required sources. Okay, so just don't forget to include the results from your Big 5 personality assessment. I mean, ideally you would cite that assessment. It's talking about a type of work setting that might be a good fit, and justifies your answer here, traits that you would seek in your ideal manager, and justifies your response. And I just want to say, for this type of work setting, if you go into our book, if you do a search, you can see I already did one, but if you do a search for Big 5, like it's telling you already, it's on page 212. That's a really quick way to jump right to what you're looking for. And it's giving you great examples of like what each of these Big 5 traits say is useful for each of those traits. So that's a good way to justify your answer. And then in our book, if you go here, if we go back to the beginning, is it the beginning? If you go back here, yeah, here, and you click on this, that's where the citation is. And again, if you go to APA, you can see that here it's wrong. Like this shouldn't be capitalized like we saw on the APA website. If we go back to references, and if you look at reference examples and you click on, like that's a book, but it's still saying that it wouldn't be capitalized, see? So just make sure that you take a note of that. I don't know why people haven't updated it, but they haven't. Okay, so just make sure that you're justifying your answer. Another great resource for this is, let me go back into our module this week. Psychology in the workplace, so that's great. And then we also have that other article that was the Shapiro Library resource for the discussion this week. And this is talking about managerial communication. So either one of these would be great to use. And then it's telling you how to cite here too. And just make sure that it's accurate. See, again, it's inaccurate. That's not correct. Like, because that shouldn't be capitalized and that shouldn't be capitalized anyway. And here's the whole thing. All right. And then, so this is about the manager and justifies your response. But remember that, like managerial communication, that's going to be extremely useful for this. How the behavior could shift as the result of work, the type of work that you're doing. I mean, I would be going back into our book and talking about that. But remember, we also, if you go back in, we also had remember how in module, I want to say it was module 3. Oh yeah, here's information about, remember how when we were talking about states and traits, so here's information about states and traits here. So that could change. This is also the complexities of team dynamics, but states and traits really is what is useful here, because it's talking about how your behavior could shift, and that's really like the person situation debate. And I just want to go in because I think in module 5 it may have also talked about that, the person situation debate. Where's our resources? Yeah, and here's the person situation debate. That resource could be helpful too. Okay, so then it's talking about traits again, which we just saw. Traits are in multiple places, but you could just use your book. Sorry, that's the wrong rubric. Here's the person situation debate. And remember, we just saw that back here, the person situation debate, and that was in module 5. Oh, I keep going back to that one. And then this is talking about personality traits could play a role in this situation. So again, we have lots of references for that, but the book could be a source. We also saw introversion, extroversion in the workplace. Here's stress and coping. And remember that really when our book was showing us, like when it's talking about the big 5, our book was talking a lot about neuroticism and stress. Like if you just click here, yeah, if you do a search for stress, you can see when it's talking about stress. And you can also just quickly see, here's the trait tradition chapter, which is, we're talking about traits, and then those high in neuroticism are likely to be vulnerable to stress. So you could just click on that, and that's why it makes the most sense to be talking about neuroticism there. So it's talking about, especially when it relates to stress, traits. Here it is also saying justify your response, so make sure that you're including information to support what you are saying. And the way that you show that you are justifying your response is to cite your source. Remember, by putting the author's last name in parentheses and comma, the year of publication. And then the steps you would take to reduce it. Justify your response for how you would reduce stress. And then just make sure that you are citing. So I know that does kind of seem like a lot, but I would just say take it piece by piece. Use your book, use that search feature. That's really helpful. And I really think that, like, here's one that's talking about here's a resource that's talking about managerial communication. That is from the current module. Module 5 also has that person situation debate, and module 3 has useful resources too, because module 3 had the states and traits. Like there's states and traits, and introverts and extroverts, and the complexities of team dynamics. So all of those will be helpful. But remember, you can just reach out if you have any questions too. I'm always here. I hope you have a good week. Bye, guys.